Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Scoop podcast with Sam and Jordan. And today we're going to be doing our end of the month, May 2024 episode, where we recap our 3 favorite films that we watched for the first time, and then talk about our least favorite movie, and then what we're excited to watch for the next month. This is our second time doing this, so if you didn't hear our end of April podcast from last month, you should go ahead and listen to that one, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, at the end of the episode, we'll also kind of go through some of our other non-movie favorites, so stick around for that. But I'll start with my 3 best movies that I saw this month. That doesn't mean they came out this month. It's just movies I saw this month. So my 3 best, the first one I won't shut up about because it's so good. I really want to re-see it. I saw The TV Glow. It's not really playing in a lot of theaters right now, but you can kind of catch it at a couple random ones where it's still playing. I went as like a me night to go see this by myself, and it's just so rare that a movie can be like horror but also really heart-wrenching at the same time. Like there were multiple parts where I was holding back tears trying not to cry because it's quite like an emotional movie. It's really hard to describe what's happening in the movie without kind of giving things away, but the general gist is like Justice Smith is the main character, and he's kind of like growing up in the 90s and sort of befriends someone else, and they're both sort of obsessed with this one like late night teen Nick style show. It's very like Are You Afraid of the Dark almost. And they sort of like bond over their love of this TV show, but the film and how it's like actually filmed is very like surreal and very dreamy. It feels like you're watching a dream for a lot of sequences, but it also plays on like a lot of the like coming of age tropes.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that one when it comes on streaming.
Yeah, I really want to re-see it because I gave it 5.5, but I think I might give it a 5.
5.5.
5.5.
You need 4.5.
I gave it 4.5, but I feel like I might give it a 5 if I like really rewatched it because I was like absorbing what was happening the first time I saw it. So the second best movie I saw this month is a movie from I think 2021, and it was kind of just like a movie festival movie, like a indie movie that just like never really took off, but it's called Strawberry Mansion, and that one is it's confusing, but if you liked Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I feel like you would like this movie because it plays on like memories and dream sequences and like what do we do with our dreams. It's kind of like a future scenario where you're required in this government to like record your dreams and turn them into the government for tax purposes, and the main character of the movie is getting audited because she hasn't turned in her dreams for several years, and so like a dream auditor has to come to her house and like retrieve the footage, and hilarity and romance ensues, and it's really really good, but it's really really weird. But yeah, I'd recommend it if you like, you know, something like Eternal Sunshine or The Truman Show, like any of those kind of like weird existential magical realism type movies. And then my last favorite for the month, we saw together in theaters. It was Challengers, Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, the tennis movie. It was a really good movie. There were a couple things that annoyed me about it, like the time jumping of like 12 years ago back to present, and like I went to the bathroom at one point and I came back and I was like, where are we at? Like yeah. It happened almost a few too many times, but other than that, I hadn't spoiled the movie for myself, so I didn't know how it ended. And there was a moment that I won't spoil for our listeners either that happens at the end of the movie where everything clicks into place just by a character doing one thing silently. And you're just like, I looked over at Sam and was like, and I was like, I can't believe that. Like, that just happened. Like, it was a great movie going experience. It was a packed theater. I had a margarita. It was great.
Yeah, that was a good experience. It was definitely one of the movies that is heightened by seeing it with large group of people.
What are your top?
That Challengers is going to be on my list as well, but since you had it, I had a few extras. But one of my favorites was Ferrari. This is the Michael Mann movie from last year, starring Adam Driver as Enzo Ferrari. It's also starring Penelope Cruz and Shailene Woodley. We watched this last weekend. I had seen Ford versus Ferrari, so this one's just Ferrari. But it's about the 1957 Mila Magelia, something like that. And yeah, it's one of those movies where it's like a historical biopic. And I didn't really know what happened exactly, so there was a surprise in the middle, or towards the end. But yeah, Adam Driver's really good, and I'm gonna try to start seeing the rest of the other Michael Mann movies because he's a really good director. My next one, I put the Garfield movie. We went to the theater to see this with Grace, and it was pretty okay. Like, it wasn't fantastic, but it could have been way worse, and I thought it was mostly charming. It had a good beginning where they had a lot of the food jokes that you expect, but there was like just a lot of jokes, like quick hitting. And then they do like a subplot with a cow and a bull and a evil cat. That was kind of interesting.
I liked the cow and the bull love story.
Yeah.
That was really cute. Like, I like it. They're not like original Garfield characters or anything, but it's like a heist movie, basically.
Yeah, Ving Rhames plays this purple bull, and they they use the actual Mission Impossible theme song, and then they use the Top Gun Maverick song and do like a homage of Top Gun Maverick. So they're like using Garfield to also like play off of other Paramount style movies. But Grace had a good time. It was a harmless kids movie. I liked it. We'll see it at some point again, I'm sure. But
I feel like it's better than the other Garfield movies that have come out in the past. Like the
live action one with Bill Murray from the 2000s. I barely remember.
I saw it. I think it's like 2004, and I remember it coming out, and I remember not enjoying it even when I was a child. But Grace enjoyed the Garfield movie, so.
I was going to mention two more real quick. Best in Show, I saw it one time a long time ago, but this is the first time you saw it. The dog show movie, Best in Show from 2000 with Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara and a lot of other people. It's just really funny.
It's like a movie that sounds really unfunny and boring on the surface, but if you are somebody who likes the way that The Office does humor by doing talking heads and having this like very
mockumentary style, yeah, it's very.
You'll love it.
It's similar to This Is Spinal Tap as well. Some of the same people are in both, but and then we also watched Dogma for the first time. This is the Kevin Smith movie from 1999 with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon as fallen angels. And there's a lot of religious Catholic characters and discussions on good versus evil. And it was definitely trying to do stuff. There was a lot of characters in it. I thought it could have been a little better, but it was one of those things where we found the used DVD at a bookstore. It's like very difficult to find.
It's out of print.
It's out of print, and like you can find it on Amazon, but it's like 20, 30, 40 bucks, and we found this for $9. And it's just not on streaming at all. It's one of those weird movies from the 90s that has no streaming rights, so it's just not going to be on streaming. So we thought we'd give it a try, and there was definitely some decent parts, and it was I liked Alan Rickman was pretty good as well.
Alan Rickman is the GOAT. He was so good in that. Like, you could tell the script was a little convoluted, but he really brought it to life for his character.
Yeah, it was like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were playing themselves pretty much. And then you have Jay and Silent Bob, who are in multiple movies like Clerks and other ones, but definitely one of the more interesting, like, religious space type movies where it's trying to say something, but also try to be funny.
Yeah.
So I thought it was definitely worth a mention. Okay, what's your worst movie of the month?
We actually saw quite a few flops this month, but The one that I was going to take just a little bit of time to talk about is Miller's Girl. A couple of words that come to mind when I think of this movie: pretentious, insufferable. It feels like the type of thing a 14-year-old would write and feel like, this is deep.
This is the Jenna Ortega movie.
Jenna Ortega and
Martin Freeman.
Yeah, Bilbo Baggins. And don't get me wrong, I love both of them, but you're only as good as your script. And when you have a script that is constantly making, like, I was trying to explain it to someone. I was like, a lot of the jokes, or like, not even jokes, like a lot of the lines were written as if they're jokes, but then the characters deliver them as if they are so serious. And you're like kind of laughing, and then you look and you realize, oh, that wasn't supposed to be funny. They actually want you to think that they mean that. And it was just really, really bad. And like, Martin Freeman came out in an interview recently and said that he thinks that the reason that people didn't enjoy the movie is because media literacy is lacking in our society lately, which I think is just kind of a fallback thing to say. Like, while that may be true, I don't think that is why your movie was bad, because genuinely it is just a very poorly made movie with like a lot of really like cringy dialogue that isn't how anybody would speak. I will give it this though, that like it being a gothic romance in like Louisiana, I'll give it that. Like, the atmosphere was cool. The fact that they all kind of had Southern accents at this like college, like it was filmed in such a way and it felt like it could be better. And I think that's what was frustrating about it, was it could have been better. It's basically like an edgy romance drama between like him as the professor and her as the student, which already is intriguing to me because it's like, oh, that's edgy and that's going to piss people off. But like, it pissed me off for different reasons than that. It was just a really cringy movie. Like, the drama wasn't good. The characters were not believable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like wasn't fun. It's supposed to be kind of like a romance revenge type of movie. Similar in my mind to how Wild Things is. It's actually very similar to Wild Things, but it does it does things that Wild Things could not, like, just didn't do. Like, Wild Things inherently is like, quote unquote, not a good movie, but like that was so fun, and it like constantly twisted and turned. I could talk about that movie forever because I already want to rewatch it. But like, it does, like, this movie wanted to be that, and it never really became that. So it was like one of those moments. I say this line all the time, the Tyra Banks, like, we were rooting for you, we were all rooting for you. Like, it kind of felt like that, because I was like, I wanted this to be better, but it just wasn't. So yeah, that was my choice worst one.
Yeah, sir, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
Mine is a little more funny, I guess. It was actually one of the first movies we watched in May, was The Cat's Meow from 2001, directed by Peter Bogdanovich, who did Paper Moon.
Which we liked a lot.
We liked Paper Moon. We saw that a little bit ago. Yeah, this one stars Kirsten Dunst as Marion Davies, and then it's basically set in 1924 on the yacht of William Randolph Hearst, the famously rich guy from that time. And yeah, we were going to try to do a lot of Kirsten Dunst movies, and we might still do some more, but we tried to do this one, and it was just really boring and bad, and like, the main guy who plays William Hearst, like, was just like unhinged. Like, none of his actions really made sense. It had a kind of a Murder on the Orient Express type of vibe,
except it was a boat.
Or I guess,
but it
or Death on the Nile. They're on a boat.
But I know what you mean. It did kind of feel like that. But like cheesier and made for TV.
Yeah, it was like way more low budget than I thought it was going to be.
Like, I remember watching the opening credits, and wasn't it like, I'm probably exaggerating.
The font was terrible.
It was like Comic Sans.
Yeah.
I was like, is this really?
You can tell a lot about a movie by the way the opening credits are.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to our most excited to watch for June. I put Furiosa because I think we're going to see that this weekend.
I also put Furiosa.
Yeah, that's kind of like the big movie. It technically already came out, but
we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. And then if I saw the TV Glow comes out in this month, I would not mention that. Just like I mentioned, I want to watch that one too.
Other than Furiosa, the only other one I really want to see this month, because it should come to, I think, Netflix streaming, is Hitman.
Oh yeah, Hitman's gonna be good.
Yeah, it should be good. Richard Linklater directs, and he did the Before trilogy. He did Boyhood, Dazed and Confused, School of Rock. This is supposed to be kind of like a romance, comedy, crime film. And it's got Glenn Powell, and I think he's hunky, so I'll take it. I've also seen like a couple of really funny ads for the Hitman movie on Reddit, where it'll be like...
I've seen those.
Have you seen those?
Yeah, they're like different...
It looks like
variations of his hitman, or like...
It's like a listing.
Because he plays different types of hitmen in the movie, is what the marketing is telling us.
It's like almost like listings for like, do you need a job taken care of? Then call this number. And I'm like, that's like very fun marketing. Like I as a marketing girly, I appreciate that. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next section, which is just non-movie things. Yeah. So Sam, what's some music that you've been really into in the month of May?
The first part of May, we had the Kendrick and Drake rap battle beef thing that's kind of died down after 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, the day we filmed the April wrap-up was the day that Euphoria dropped.
Yeah, so since then, obviously, Not Like Us came out, and
Meet the
Grams. Not Like Us became like the #1 song. Some other stuff besides that, I mean, we had the Billie Eilish album, obviously. I've been listening to Chihiro more recently from that album, Birds of a Feather, I really like. And then, the new Sexy Red album came out, gave that a listen to as well. Got about 4 songs that are half decent. And then we kind of got it more into Chappell Roan this month. I don't know if you talked about that last time, or
I mentioned that album last month.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. She hasn't left the rotation at this point. Grace is now asking for Chappell Roan by name. And she always, that song Hot to Go, at the beginning of it, she says 5, 6, 7, 8. And Grace we were on vacation recently, and she was in the back seat. Before the song would come on, she'd be like 5, 6, 7, 8. And I was like, oh man, my daughter. Yeah, actually, you covered all the music I was going to cover. I was just going to say, since, we did our April wrap-up, that was the day that Euphoria had come out. If you're not caught up on just the entire lore of the Drake and Kendrick beef, like, educate yourself. It is wild pop culture stuff, and I love that we got to, like, kind of live it live and, like, wait for stuff to drop in real time. There was, like, a specific weekend. It was the very first weekend of May where just, like, people were going band for band. It was, like, Friday, 30 minutes later, another drop. Then the next day, another drop.
Yeah, we went to the Challengers movie. I think that was a Saturday night. And then
we got out of the movie.
Not Like Us just dropped while we were in the theater.
Yeah.
So we were listening to it on the way home.
It was funny because, like, we put it on, and then Sam was like, play it back. Like, as soon as it was over, he was like, play it back. But I was going to say, through this whole, you've been a Kendrick Lamar fan for a really long time, and you always had the album To Pimp a Butterfly in your Honda in your car when you were, like, engaged and then married or whatever, 10 years ago or however long it's been since that album came out. And I was kind of, like, marginally aware of who he was. And then in 2017, when his album Damn came out, that was when I really got into Kendrick Lamar. So through this whole kind of rap battle, I, like, recently got into Kendrick Lamar, and I've been just, like, listening to his albums from start to finish while I'm working every day. And it goes without saying, the, like, Apple top 100 albums of all time list came out.
Yeah,
and
it was a bum list.
it was a bum list for sure, but it did make me actually want to go back through and listen to Good Kid, Mad City all the way through. And I do really like To Pimp a Butterfly, but I also was like, I had never actually listened to Good Kid, Mad City all the way through. And so I was pleasantly surprised and into it. So
yeah, a lot of people went back and listened to Kendrick's older stuff.
I mean, he's like in the top 10 artists in the world right now on Spotify for listens. So I think we're not alone in that. But I was also, the only other one I was going to say was the new Billie Eilish album. I like that you mentioned you've been listening to Chihiro a lot. That is I think the main character's name in Spirited Away.
Yeah.
And so I think it's supposed to be kind of reminiscent of that.
Yeah, I saw that. I really had just one more like YouTube thing. There was a Creators for Palestine. What is it called?
Yep, Creators for Palestine.
Yeah, so a lot of the YouTube people we watch, like the Try Guys, Jarvis Johnson, Hassan Piker, some other people, they all came together and did like a 4.5 hour stream and raised over $1 million for Palestine. So that was a big thing that happened.
It was fun to kind of watch the stream, and they did a couple of random things like painting and cooking, and they did that. I don't really watch Smosh, but apparently there's a bit that Smosh does where it's try not to laugh, and you put water in your mouth and people come out and do like little funny things for 30 seconds to try to get everybody to spit the water out. So that was kind of fun to watch some of our favorites kind of all be in a room together for a good cause. So I've got, as far as YouTube goes, I can't stress this enough. If you're a Star Wars fan, you need to watch the Jenny Nicholson Star Wars Hotel.
That was another big one.
I know it's 4.5 hours, but it is so well done and so well documented. And I think it really, like, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I think it really shows that, like, the depths of just the fallacy of like capitalism and how you can take something that's so great and really just milk people of all of their money to get a really subpar experience. Subpar is like saying it very nicely.
Like she eviscerates the whole idea and the whole thing. I mean, it got shut down, and it's funny, we're recommending 2 4-hour YouTube videos, but they're both really good. And usually when there's a YouTube video that's super long, it's because it's well done and interesting.
Yeah, and for the most part, it's not like I sit there and watch it like a movie. When it comes to YouTube, like a lot of times,
we take
1.5 speed it, 2 speed it. You put multiple sittings, or you'll listen to it like a podcast. My only other YouTube one I was going to recommend, I think a lot of people watch Mina Lee, but she does really good, well researched, shorter form content video essays. And she recently had a video. She covers a lot of stuff, just sociopolitically in general, but a lot of like intersectional feminist type videos and stuff. And this most recent one she did was called Being a Hater and the Overexposure Paradigm. It's easy to be on the side of, I don't like that actress anymore because she's kind of getting on my nerves, or I don't like that singer anymore because she's everywhere and I can't get away from her. And the way that Mina like lines out how it's very easy to bandwagon hate towards a specific celebrity because they're overexposed, when if you actually think about it, they're overexposed because they're trying to gain money. And like us hating them as a person is really just us hating their capitalistic efforts to gain even more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so us like hating them as a person is like a false deflection of like how we actually feel about the issue. She was comparing how, Jennifer Lawrence kind of had this like steep decline into like, she used to be kind of like the every girl's girl, and she was tripping at the Oscars and she was talking about pizza and everyone was like, wow, she's so relatable. And then at some point she was just overexposed and was doing too many interviews. And there was an interview she was in where she was like, people are going to probably start hating me soon because I'm everywhere. And sure enough, like her likability kind of went down right after that. Versus if you take somebody like Zendaya, who is extremely private and has like no real presence at all, except for if she is promoting something. Like, she doesn't post stuff on her Instagram story. She literally only posts if she's doing like a partnership with someone or with like a fashion brand. She's rarely in anything, and she's very rarely even spotted by the paparazzi. Today she was walking her dog, I say, but anyway, people talk about like the likability of stars like Zendaya. They have more of like a longevity to them because they're not overexposed. But anyway, it's a really, really fascinating video that just talks about like fandom culture in general and like the people's perception of like female dominated fandoms and stuff like that. It's a very like multifaceted video that's very interesting, but check her out. Mina Lee is cool. The only other two things I had were a book that I liked this month and a video game that I've been playing. The video game is, I think it's literally like the 34th, 35th Nancy Drew computer game. It's probably the worst one out of all of them. I still haven't beat it yet, but I will play any.
What's it called again?
Mystery of the Seven Keys, I think is what it's called.
And isn't it in like Prague?
Yes, it's in Prague. And it's fine. But I will say, like, it's subpar graphics, it's laggy. I don't care about any of the dialogue. I don't care about any of the character development. I just want to get through it. But I will eat up any new Nancy Drew game that comes my way because it's like, I've come this far. I've played all 30 some odd of these. It's like,
yeah, you got to complete them all now.
I know. But I mean, since they got a new voice actor for Nancy in the last two, and like they changed the entire way of the gameplay in the last two, like it's just never been the same as the originals. That being said, it's still on my list for the month of favorite video games because it's the only video game I've really been playing. So, and then the book that I really liked this month, it took me a while to read. I was like halfway through listening to the audiobook and I immediately bought a physical copy of it because I was like, yeah, this is a good book that I want to like highlight and stuff. It's this nonfiction book called Monsters by Claire Dederer. And it's basically a book that kind of looks at what do we do with the art of monstrous people and like how do we decide, you can have like somebody like Woody Allen, like what do you do with those movies now that we know what we know? Or what do you do with the music of Michael Jackson now that we know what we know? And where is the line? Is it different for everyone? Is it that you can consume the art if they're no longer alive, therefore they're not monetarily profiting off of anything anymore? Is it a completely moral, individualistic choice that like you have to kind of weigh things on your own? But there's a lot of like really in-depth chapters that kind of pose different thought experiments that you can sort of think and consider for yourself. And she interviews like a lot of her friends and a lot of like other people in the arts and just asks them like their personal opinions on it. And it's really fascinating just having that kind of conversation in general, I think. Because I think for some people it's, what you consume needs to feel morally pure for you to feel good about consuming it. And then I think for other people, there's a gray area. And I think there's not really a wrong answer. Like,
yeah,
I find it a really fascinating topic because I don't think that there is a wrong answer. And I think that like you could look at any of your favorites, anything, and there's a reason that you shouldn't consume their content for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And I
feel
think
like it's different for everybody.
It's 100% different for everybody. I think to be like really clear, to have like a hyperfixation on having morally pure content, you will never get there. Because as soon as you find somebody that you're like, they've never done anything wrong, I can actually lean fully into this and like this, and I can be proud to be in this quote unquote fandom, something will happen. And do you throw away the love you had for the content because you no longer want to support the artist once you find out what you find out, and like, how do you kind of negate that? And like, how do you grapple with that? She also poses a lot of questions of like, not just artists being monsters, but like people in general being monsters. And like she was saying, everybody knows somebody that they would say does things that are morally not aligned with what they would do as an individual, but you'll still be around them, whether they're a family member, whether they're a friend, or, things like that. And like, that's a gray area, but you're still going to keep your random second cousin in your life that you don't agree with what they're doing, but you might not do the same for like watching a movie of a dead guy that, said fascist things 50 years ago. Like, how do you kind of like grapple with that reasoning? And it's like mental gymnastics to kind of like figure that kind of thing out. But it was a really, really good book, and I would like to reread it because I think it's a really timely kind of conversation to have in the year 2024. But yeah, that was it.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
That was all we had for this month. Wish us luck in the month of June. It should be a really tightly packed month of content. Looking forward to some really good movies. I know there's going to be some good music that comes out this month. And yeah, hopefully we'll be tanner by then. We've been in the sun a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.